Picture this: the late 1990s. The Pentagon is pouring billions into the F-22. Air shows are packed with spectators watching sleek jets scream overhead, and every aviation journalist thinks they know exactly what America's next generation of aircraft looks like. Yet out in the Nevada desert, something far stranger is taking shape. A small, predatory craft with wings curved like a manta and a silhouette that seemed to swallow the light around it. No weapons, no speed records, no production plans. Just a stealth testbed engineered so quietly that most people inside the industry didn't even know it existed. They called it the Bird of Prey, a jet built not to fight, but to vanish. Everything about it was intentional, from the hidden intake to the jagged contours designed to scatter radar like broken glass. And when its job was done, it disappeared again, leaving barely a whisper behind. In this video, we're uncovering how a low-budget experiment became one of the most influential stealth breakthroughs ever flown, and why the public wasn't meant to see it at all. Before we begin, hit subscribe so you don't miss more deep aviation stories like this. The late 1990s were supposed to be predictable. The F-22 dominated magazine covers, showing off the sharp lines and raw power that defined next-generation air superiority. The B-2 had already proved stealth wasn't a futuristic gamble anymore, but a functioning reality. And the Joint Strike Fighter competition was swallowing the spotlight, turning every defense briefing into a battle of prototypes. To anyone watching from the outside, the future of American air power looked like it was unfolding right in front of them, with nothing hidden behind the curtain. Everyone was wrong. Behind closed doors at Boeing's Phantom Works, a very different story was unfolding. Inside windowless labs and restricted hangars, engineers were shaping something that didn't fit any category the public understood. Not a fighter chasing speed records. Not a bomber built for global strike missions. Not even a technology demonstrator designed to impress the Pentagon. It was a stealth lab with wings, a flying experiment built specifically to break rules and push shaping concepts no operational program could risk trying. The goal was simple: build a jet so hard to detect that it could teach the Pentagon how to design the next generation of invisible aircraft. No expectations, no publicity, no pressure to perform for congressional hearings. Just raw experimentation. It was flown at remote ranges, logged flights under total secrecy, and didn't leak for nearly a decade. When the Pentagon finally revealed it in 2002, even seasoned analysts were stunned. The airframe didn't match any known design lineage. It looked like something reverse-engineered from a classified sketchbook. And that was the point. Bird of Prey wasn't meant to show off. It was meant to stay in the shadows. But the reason it looked so strange wasn't artistic freedom. It was survival. The first public photos of Bird of Prey made it look like a prop from a sci-fi film. Curved wings mounted far aft, a knife-like nose, a cockpit blended into the body, and no vertical tail to speak of. But nothing about its shape came from imagination. Every contour was engineered to break radar logic. The wings weren't sculpted for beauty. Their extreme sweep and gull-like droop pushed radar reflections away from enemy receivers. The intake wasn't placed on top for flair. Hiding the turbine face was essential, because exposed compressor blades are radar beacons. By burying the engine deep within the fuselage and shielding it from direct view, Boeing cut one of the biggest radar signatures modern jets struggle to overcome. Even the seams told a story. Engineers minimized surface gaps, panel lines, and hinges, creating a smooth, blended structure that denied radar the sharp edges it depends on. It wasn't about aerodynamics. It was about erasing anything that gave radar something to bounce off. The result was a jet that didn't resemble its era. It barely resembled an airplane at all. It looked like a creature adapted for a world where detection meant death. But this shape didn't just rewrite stealth theory. It rewrote stealth budgets. Most stealth aircraft cost fortunes, billions for development, hundreds of millions per aircraft. Yet Bird of Prey was built, tested, and flown for around $67 million. Not per jet. Total. That budget forced Boeing's Phantom Works to rethink everything about how stealth aircraft were made. They embraced early computer-aided design in ways operational programs couldn't risk. They used fast, low-cost tooling. They built structural pieces that were simpler, lighter, and easier to replace. They experimented with construction methods meant to cut both labor time and radar signature. The aircraft wasn't meant to break speed barriers. Its engine came from a business jet. Its ceiling and endurance were modest, but none of that mattered. Bird of Prey existed to test stealth shaping and manufacturing shortcuts, not to dogfight or outrun anything. Because of that freedom, Boeing's engineers tried things they'd never attempt on a frontline jet. They could test blends, edges, surface treatments, and unusual structural layouts without worrying about a Pentagon requirement sheet. The result was a stealth aircraft that cost less than a single modern missile battery, an absurd price for what it taught. But low cost meant nothing until the aircraft proved it could actually fly. And that required taking it somewhere almost no one could see. Bird of Prey didn't fly from famous test bases. It flew from places that appear on maps as blank squares. Its first flight came in 1996, years before anyone outside its circle knew it existed. Only a handful of cleared pilots touched its controls. Each sortie tested tiny increments: low-speed handling, approach angles, radar-measured profiles, and the stability quirks of a tailless design. There were no high G turns, no supersonic passes, no weapons releases. Every flight was a data-gathering mission. Quiet takeoff, controlled segment, smooth landing. Then hours of reviewing signatures inside facilities locked behind multiple security layers. The desert was chosen for one reason: distance from curious eyes. No journalists, no telephoto lenses, no radar collectors waiting outside the fence line. Just a single experimental jet carving traces across restricted airspace before returning to the hangar it never left without escort. By 1999, the aircraft had completed its job. And just like that, it was shelved. No retirement ceremony, no press briefing. It simply vanished until the Air Force chose to reveal it 3 years later. But the real shock wasn't how quietly Bird of Prey flew. It was what happened after Boeing realized it had already outgrown its purpose. If you're enjoying this deep look into hidden aviation history, hit subscribe. It helps the channel reach more people who love the stories behind the aircraft the public wasn't supposed to know about. When Bird of Prey wrapped its final tests in 1999, there wasn't a dramatic finale waiting for it. No next phase, no upgrade package, no operational conversion. The team didn't push it toward production because production was never the goal. This was a stealth experiment, and experiments end the moment the data speaks clearly. By the time Bird of Prey completed its 38 to 40 flights, it had already proved what Boeing needed. The shaping concepts worked. The cost-cutting construction techniques worked. The gap-reduced surfaces and blended edges worked. Even the unusual intake placement delivered what engineers had hoped for. Every major stealth challenge the program set out to explore had been answered. And once those answers existed, the aircraft itself became unnecessary. Boeing didn't cancel it. It simply retired it. The technology moved up the food chain into classified folders and stealth toolkits used for future programs. The Pentagon kept quiet because revealing it early would have exposed shaping breakthroughs that competitors weren't supposed to know existed. When it was finally shown to the public in 2002, the reveal wasn't a celebration. It was more like admitting that a chapter had closed years earlier. Bird of Prey had completed its mission long before anyone outside Groom Lake even knew its name. But where the data went next is what changed everything. Bird of Prey didn't disappear into a museum as a curiosity. Its fingerprints show up across programs that followed, especially unmanned combat aircraft. Boeing's X-45 is the most public descendant. Its tailless layout, smooth plan form, and blended edges echo Bird of Prey with surprising closeness. Engineers reused lessons about shaping, panel alignment, and radar scattering directly from the test program. The manufacturing techniques were just as influential. The digital-first design approach, low-cost tooling, and simplified structural joints helped shape how Boeing approached scalable stealth. Many of these methods later matured into processes used for advanced drones and classified prototypes that remain outside public view. The shaping philosophies didn't stay with Boeing alone. Once the program's core findings reached the Pentagon, They fed into shared stealth design libraries used by other contractors. Concepts like shielded intakes, angled wing roots, and surface blending migrated into the broader low observable community. Even jets that don't look similar still carry the same logic Bird of Prey refined. If a modern airframe has fewer exposed edges, smoother transitions, or simplified control surfaces, there's a good chance the ideas were sharpened by this small black aircraft from the desert. Bird of Prey wasn't just a plane, it was a blueprint. And its descendants might be flying missions the public won't hear about for decades. But not everything about this jet is documented. Some parts remain shadows within shadows. Every declassified program has holes, but Bird of Prey's gaps are unusually wide. The Air Force disclosed that it tested stealth shaping and cost-efficient construction, but many specifics remain untouchable. The exact radar cross-section numbers have never been released. Materials used on key surfaces are still classified. Even the full list of flight test objectives is partially redacted. Then there are the myths. Online forums often claim the aircraft tested optical camouflage, a rumor sparked by its name and the secrecy surrounding it. There's no confirmed evidence it ever carried such systems, yet the legend persists because Bird of Prey looked like the kind of machine that could hide from more than radar. Some aviation watchers also suspect the program fed directly into classified reconnaissance drones. The timeline fits, the shaping fits, and the lack of public successors only fuels the idea that its true heirs never reach daylight. Even after declassification, Bird of Prey feels incomplete. It's the rare aircraft where the museum piece probably hides less than the unseen programs it inspired. But the strangest part comes last. A jet designed to be invisible now sits in plain sight. Bird of Prey rests today at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. It sits quietly among giants like the SR-71 and B-2, yet most visitors walk past it without realizing they're looking at one of the most influential stealth testbeds ever flown. It's smaller than people expect. Simpler, almost modest for an aircraft tied to programs that shaped modern unmanned warfare. Its presence in the museum isn't about public glory. It's more like a historical footnote finally allowed to breathe. The airframe on display is the only one ever built. No variants, no serial line. Just a single craft that proved ideas so successfully it deleted its own future. Seeing it in daylight creates a strange tension. This jet lived its entire life assuming silence. No photos, no spectators, no announcements. Now it sits under bright lights while its technological descendants remain hidden behind security doors. Bird of Prey didn't become a legend by winning dogfights. It became one by ensuring the aircraft that would win them had the stealth they needed to survive. And that brings us to the final question. How do you remember a jet that never wanted to be seen? Some aircraft earn their place in history through combat. Bird of Prey earned it by shaping the machines that would fight long after it disappeared. It proved ideas, rewrote stealth rules, and then stepped back into the dark. Standing before it now, you're not just looking at a retired prototype. You're looking at the blueprint for the invisible future of air power.